Ultimately just wanting to take like getting experience for medical school into my own hands. And so I decided this program, I feel like I could have a lot of say as to what I want to do and like what shadowing I wanted to see. And so I really felt as if it was my own experience.
Yeah, I found the program through a friend that had already found it, and she told me about it, and it really resonated with me personally because my junior year of college, I had worked as a PCT in a high trauma level emergency room in a predominantly Hispanic city and or Spanish speaking city, and I saw firsthand the language barrier that really caused a lot of issues within the hospital, especially in high pressure situations, and I myself felt like I needed more practice being able to overcome the boundary itself and provide better care for people that don't necessarily speak the language.
So coming into college, I knew I wanted to do a study abroad program, and I wasn't picky on the country or where I was going. So I saw this opportunity in an email from my university and thought that it was perfect, as I did need medical shadowing, and I was also interested in learning Spanish as I took a different language in high school.
Because I was going through my university's shadow abroad options, and I found non-university affiliated, but like university almost approved programs. And I found it on the list, and I was like, oh, this sounds so cool. So I did more research into it, and I ended up going. As to like what motivated me, I'd say that as a person who is Latina herself, it was very like I saw how jarring it was to not be able to communicate with providers, especially as I saw my grandmother struggling and sometimes my mom struggling with them not being able to understand what the doctors were telling them. And I was like, oh, wow, I really wanted to advance my knowledge of medical terminology and be able to decrease some of that language barrier.
So I'm a little bit more on the independent side of things. Obviously, my family was involved in the decision and like helping me with the funding and things like that. But ultimately, I did a lot of my planning as for like obviously the homestay or the Airbnb option. I chose the Airbnb option just because I've already had that independent experience here in college. So I was already living on my own. But my family did help me choose the Airbnbs, and they were calling me every day just to make sure I was okay and checking in and seeing how my experience was going. So, yes, they had their concerns, but ultimately, having had that experience already in college, I feel like they had their trust in me.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always a really good example of having parents that are not necessarily on board immediately. Like Sophia said, I had to go to my parents for help financing the trip. And so I couldn't really keep it a secret. But if I could have, I probably would have, because my parents are very paranoid, frightened people. And so when this popped up, it was a lot of communication between the staff members, which did an amazing job. I think my mom requested like 2 or 3 like online visits with you, Bethy, just to clarify things, and everything just worked out really well. And we always got the answers that we needed, and the trip went just like y'all said it would. So that was really...
My parents were very supportive of my decision. And in college, my mom studied abroad to multiple different countries. So she was actually a driving force in my initial interest in studying abroad. So when it came down to my decision, she was like, I fully support you. I think you should, but ultimately it's up to you. So I was very independent in the process, in the planning and everything.
I would also say I'm probably more on the independent part. I kind of didn't tell my parents until I got accepted into the program. And they were like, oh, okay, that's cool, I guess. And I think something that really helped was the singular meeting that we had that was parents and then the staff, and then also the one-on-one meetings like Michael was mentioning. I think I had one with my mom and I had one with my dad as well. And they were like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense. I did fund the trip nearly entirely on my own. So like my parents were like, you do you, girl, wherever you want.
All right. All right,
Yeah.
awesome. And just following that idea, I know that a lot of you said, you had help from your families funding the program. Isabella, you just mentioned you did it all on your own. Can you share a little bit about, how you did that? Did you just, do some part-time work? Did you find some funding elsewhere?
Yeah, so I have one of the things that I did is I put things on credit cards that I know gave me points towards mileage. So I paid for my flight through the money that I got and the points that I got from the credit cards that I used to pay off the trip. And to pay off those credit cards, I had a part-time job here in college, and I kind of tried to save up as much as I could. I did take out a loan, not a loan with the school, that is. I paid in increments as opposed to paying it off in one go. And that definitely helped out a lot because I was able to very slowly go down and like chop some of it off. I think at the very end, my parents were like, here, let me help you out with like a little bit. Like my mom helped me out with one of the Airbnbs in Quito. And but I mostly I worked, I saved, I used my cards, and I was smart about using points towards things like food.
Excellent.
So I did meet with my advisor afterwards and gave them my paperwork so I could get credit. I think there was an issue, so I got credit for 2 of the courses versus 3, but it ended up working out in the end.
Okay, super. And you can always keep that for grad school if required, right? That extra course that you have. So you can always connect with us. And I know a lot of students save their credits for grad school as well. So great.
Yeah, so a lot of it was just buying scrubs and getting all the medical equipment that we needed for each country. Academically, Spanish wise, I had a pretty good foundation already. So going into it, I was kind of just expecting to get more used to the regional dialect instead of just Spanish in general. And then emotionally, honestly, I was kind of homesick the first 2 weeks in shadow abroad, but I kind of just got used to being away from home. Obviously, I miss my friends and my family and the warm weather in California during the time. But I don't regret going at all.
I mean, as far as preparing for the trip, item-wise, I feel like you guys made it really easy as to know what to bring, what not to bring. Like you were talking about, it's completely different weather from where you're leaving, so making sure you're researching what the temperatures are during the day, at night, things that you might want to wear, what you're probably going to be doing, and those type of activities, what you're going to want to wear for that. As far as academically, I just kind of wanted to get thrown into it. I already spoke Spanish a lot back at home, so I kind of wanted to just go head first and just kind of feel the intensity from the get-go. Something I am happy that I did is I left a lot of space to bring stuff back when I did pack, and I think that's important because I was very happy that I did that at the end of my trip. I did a lot of shopping that I probably shouldn't have done, but I don't regret it.
So for preparing academically, I had no idea what to do because, like I said, I'd never taken a Spanish course. So I was just on Duolingo and then looking up random things online to try to have a basic conversation. That didn't really do anything for me. But for preparing my documents, I agree with Michael. You made it very easy. All of the meetings that we had, I was able to plan out every item that I needed. So it was very easy in that sense to get myself together. Emotionally, I would say the homesickness kind of came in waves. And I don't think I felt nervous or scared to travel until I was actually on the plane. And I landed in Peru and I was like, wait, this is real. I'm actually here. But other than that, it was a great experience and the preparation was really easy.
Yeah, I had already a pretty decent knowledge of Spanish going in, and I think I was very excited to be able to use it more, especially because the institute the institution that I go to is PWI, primarily white institution. So it's very difficult to talk to my peers in Spanish because there's like 4 in a class. And so I was excited to do that. As for like packing and housing and travel, I'm very meticulous. And so I was like, okay, first I need to get a luggage. Do I have one? And then I had to go find one. And then I was like, okay, what am I going to wear Monday through Friday? Okay, but what am I going to wear during this trip? And so I just kind of like tried to like pack with also leaving space, like Michael said, to like bring stuff back. And it was just like, oh, okay, wait, do I need this many things? No, I don't think so. Am I even going to use this? And it was just like, it was a lot of like logistics, and like I made a spreadsheet. I was a little crazy for a little bit. And then
I felt it was very helpful, like all the presentations that you guys had and then sending them to us just to go over them on our own time as well. And then like the list in the spreadsheet saying this is what you've completed, this is what you need to turn in still. All of that was like just very straightforward, and I knew exactly what to expect going into the trip.
I would have to agree. I feel like you guys made it very clear, and I remember after getting accepted into the program, there would be these weekly meetings or bi-weekly or whatnot, and there would be those lists like Sophia was talking about, and you guys would send checkups like, hey, have you turned this in? This is what you need. This is the deadline. Okay, you're past the deadline. Okay, well, here's another day to get this done. If you don't get this done, then here's the deadline for that. And it was just you guys were on top of it, and it made it really easy.
Yeah, I agree with everything said. And I feel like these meetings helped me feel comfortable and like, okay, like this is a good program. Like I'm going to be safe when I'm away. I'm going to be okay, especially when it finally came to creating the group me's of everyone and we got to like interact with the people that are going to be in our cohort. Like it was just a great experience all around, especially since you offered private meetings and I was definitely sending emails 24/7 anytime I was confused on anything. So
yeah, I feel nothing else can be said. I wholeheartedly agree. Like even I had an issue at a point in time with one of my vaccinations and you guys were very patient of like, yes, you can submit this a little bit later. I was like, hey, look at this is all the documentation saying I have all of them except this one. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. Just send it in later. And it really helped like being able to see, oh, okay, I've done all of this. Oh shoot, I forgot this one. Let me send it in right now. And it was very well organized.
So, we were very fortunate in Quito to get to shadow every day. So for us in Quito, a week would look like shadowing in the morning at your hospital, doing like an hour and a half lunch, and then going to class, your Spanish classes, and then ending that day like right before dinner time, and then either going home to your homestay for dinner or going to your Airbnb for dinner. And then usually sometimes we'd plan a little activity after class, or we'd have an activity for us during or after class as well. And then on weekends was usually excursion time. So we would go to the market or go hiking, seeing waterfalls, all these fun things. But it was definitely jam-packed and you were busy every day.
Just now, like every trip I think also has a possibility of being different as far as the scheduling. Because I remember for us, we had 2 weeks of straight classes, and then we had a third week of when we were shadowing. And so the first 2 weeks were very rigorous in the sense that we wake up really early or waking up super early and getting to class with your friends. And then it's like long hours of just these classes and you're sitting there talking. It's a lot of Spanish. It's like exactly what you need if you're trying to get to the next level, because it's very challenging to sit there for the amount of time that we did and stay connected with the conversation. And we're having these deep conversations in class that you would never have in a Spanish class here in the United States. And so it's very intense academically speaking, but to go back to the schedule, we'd finish off and then we'd have, I guess, some sort of excursion afterwards where we'd go and visit some part of the city all together, or we'd visit a museum, and that'd be a few hours. And then after that, you have free time to either do your homework or to go and connect with some other part of the city with your friends and make
Different
plans. Or
depending
sometimes
on the place. For example, Peru was the only one where we had shadowing every single day. So we would have shadowing in the morning, a short break to eat, and then you would go to classes, a short break in between classes, and then have a little more class after that. Afterwards, if we didn't have an excursion, you would either go out to eat with your friends or with your host family, or occasionally we'd have a tour or go salsa dancing or something like that. But in the other two locations, in Chile and Argentina, it was a block schedule. So we had for 2 weeks just straight classes, like Michael was saying, and it is definitely very long. You're in class from like 8, 9 a.m. until I don't even remember, like 5 maybe. And so you do have short breaks for snacks and a break for lunch. But it's definitely very rigorous. And then afterwards, we would go on walking tours again, or guides would take us on different excursions. So it was definitely a very full day.
Isabella.
Yeah, I actually did the same program that Sophia did. And so our Quito and our Buenos Aires was the same. But to talk about a little bit about Buenos Aires, it was a block schedule where we would have 2 weeks where we had all classes. I think ours was the first and the last week. And then in the middle week, we did shadowing at one of the hospitals in Buenos Aires. And we'd have like, we did tours of like different places. Like we did La Recoleta, which is a cemetery. And it was really fun being able to like practice going on the buses and the subway metro system in Argentina. And so
Yeah, so definitely different from here in the US. I feel like it was a more personalized experience between doctor and patient. You just see more connection. They have more history together. They're often like seeing each other basically their whole lives. So it's definitely a more personalized experience. I also discovered that rheumatology was a thing. I had no idea that was a specialty, and so I was able to shadow that in Argentina, and just learning about that and learning that they focus on autoimmune diseases was very interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that healthcare looks very different in other countries than it does here. Whether it's the relationship between the doctor and the patient, as Sophia was talking about, or it's the actual type of healthcare system that's in place in the hospital. I know in Chile there was almost a semi-universal healthcare system that was like based off like sectors, which was super interesting. As far as the shadowing experience itself overall, personally, I think that the shadowing or the pre-med scene here in the United States is very saturated. As a student, it's hard to get positions shadowing. You're competing with high schoolers and college students. And once you kind of find something, you want to stay there because you don't want to lose and you need those hours, you want the experience. The variety of experience that we got shadowing and looking at the different specialties and the different types of clinics, there's private clinics, there's hospitals that we were looking at. It's something in that short amount of time too, is something that I don't think I could find here whatsoever. So that was very special in my experience.
I was very surprised with how personal the experience was in all of the countries. Something that stood out to me was all of the home visits that we made in Peru, and just seeing the patients and the doctors interact, and how it really felt like they truly cared for each other, like it was a family. And just listening to the stories from all of the patients, like it was very touching, and it was very different to how it is here. And definitely across all 3 countries, all of the nurses and the doctors, they were so patient and willing to work with you, especially as I was definitely struggling with Spanish, especially in Peru when I was first starting. I remember they would like draw out diagrams, or especially in Chile, that was when I saw the most surgeries. I remember after one of the laparoscopies that I saw, he drew a diagram and explained everything step by step and was like, okay, does this make sense? If not, we'll go over it again. And they were inviting me to more surgeries after the fact. So even though you have set times for when you're set to be at the hospital, you could be there for way longer because you create connections with people in the hospital. So I thought that was really special.
I think I was very lucky to be able to shadow different specialties when I was in Quito. Like Sophia mentioned, our Quito, we had like more hours per week, and they kind of rotated us through different specialties at the hospital that I was at. And it was very interesting to see how willing people were to accepting like students, especially foreigners. I was placed with, because we were a group of 4 in our hospital and they split us into 2 and 2. I was placed with somebody who didn't speak as much Spanish as I did. And it was really interesting and fun seeing like how when I wasn't able to really properly translate something, they would like explain it to me in a way that I would then be able to explain to the person that I was with. And it was very like also interesting to see how there's differences between the public and the private sector of medicine in Latin America, whereas here in the United States, we almost exclusively have private healthcare. And just like the relationship between doctor and patient, where people were able to like joke around with their patients, whereas I feel here it's very clinical. And as a shadow in the United States, you're doing exactly that. You're almost not in the room. Whereas in Latin America, they tried to include you into conversations.
Right.
Yeah, so for me in Quito, one of the most memorable excursions was climbing the Cotopaxi mountain. It was definitely a struggle to say the least. It was like there was snow, so it was like freezing and it was like very high altitude. But ultimately just like getting to climb it, and I eventually made it. I think it was like one of the greatest accomplishments on that trip, and so I'll never forget it. And that was one of my favorite excursions.
I know we had gone to Valparaiso, which wasn't necessarily an excursion, but we spent its first 2 weeks in Santiago, and then we went to Valparaiso and Viña del Mar, and that was its own excursion. It kind of felt like going to a separate country, even though we were still in Chile, and it was just a different experience, different type of people, slightly different way people talk, and then so you're just going, it's like you just thought you had just learned all about this culture in this one city, and then surprise, there's more that's completely different but somewhat related. And then going to another country like that, like Argentina, I always, speaking Spanish at home, I always really like never really liked Argentinian accent because it was hard for me to understand. And when I got there, I just fell in love with it, and I couldn't stop saying "show," and like it just me pegó, and it stuck with me. I know we also were able to plan excursions outside of the program itself, which I thought was awesome. We ended up making a trip up to Iguazu in Brazil, and me and my friends, and we were able to come back down. We went to Uruguay when we were able to, and just making the most of the time that we had on top of the many excursions and things that we did as part of the program. I think the volunteering portions of the trip were probably the most impactful for me personally. I remember when we were in Viña del Mar, there was a community that was affected by a really bad fire, and people had it was very devastating. People had their entire houses destroyed, lost family members, lost pets, and they were still there trying to live out of the houses that remained and parts of the houses that remained. And it was just really overwhelmingly emotional to go, and we went and we offered supplies. We went to go speak with the people that lost loved ones. And I remember telling you about this, but on our way back from that trip, that bus where we all were sitting there completely silent on the way back, and we were all just contemplating what we had just experienced, and it was very impactful. I know in Argentina we also got to spend a lot of time with the elderly at this retirement home, and that's a very big test to Spanish and your Spanish ability, if you're able to understand people that speak a little bit faster and don't really care if you're understanding everything they're saying. But it was also very interesting to connect with them and hear their stories about growing up in the city, and that's just very invaluable experience.
Like I said, it was very impactful. I also did the volunteering in Chile and making the packages for the people affected by the fire, and that was like, it was just very touching. I feel like it was a very emotional moment for everyone that was in the group as we were hearing about it. And we also did visit senior homes in both Peru and Argentina, which I think that was my favorite personally. It was very interesting learning about people's lives and just how excited they were to have this conversation, especially with foreigners. Like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And then I remember that we also had another opportunity in Peru where we were hanging out with children and playing with them and speaking with them. So it's just, everything was very fun, very impactful. And we turned everything into teachable moments as well. Like in the senior home in Argentina, we were talking about technology and the pros and cons of technology and trying to break the stigma that some of the older generations might have and show how beneficial it actually is. So I really enjoyed all of those moments.
Great.
Yeah, so generally I would say I felt safe. They tell us like where the schools are, where the hospitals are in the area in which you'll stay or you should choose to stay, with the Airbnbs and things like that. So ultimately it was like a 10-minute walk from school, from the hospital. So it wasn't that far. And that 10-minute walk is like in a main street in the main city, where it's lit and like you don't see many like dangerous things happening. So ultimately I felt pretty safe. I will say like certain experiences that you ultimately also see here in the US, like catcalling, especially like for women and things like that, do happen, but I wouldn't say it's much different from our culture here. So just expect certain things like that. But ultimately, like nothing happened to our group and our group was safe throughout the entire experience. So I would say like just sticking with a friend or sticking with the group or just texting somebody, letting them know, hey, I made it back, like things like that, like just help support our group and that general feeling of safety.
Let's say before the trip, I didn't know what to expect. I was a little concerned. Like I said previously, my parents were very concerned, so I had that in the back of my head. But I was really surprised when I got there. I didn't feel unsafe at any moment. I think that you guys, again, did a great job of giving us the locations to stay here, stay within this area. This is a better area for you to be going out and doing this sort of thing at. This is a better area for you to stay in Airbnb at. This is where the school is located at. And this is why, and again, just pounding in the notion of you're in a place you've never been before. Practice safety, common sense. Check where you're. Never go anywhere by yourself. I know our group was really good about not letting any girls go back to their Airbnb by themselves, or no one was really alone at all. And we were communicating constantly. Make sure that you have coverage on your cell phone before going onto the trip. If you need to get an eSIM or whatever you need to do, make sure you have a good idea of where you're situated and what's around you at all times. But aside from that, I really didn't have any safety issues whatsoever personally.
Prior to the trip, I don't think I was overly concerned or worried about my safety, but I definitely was surprised at how comfortable and at home I felt in countries that I'd never been in before. So I definitely never had a moment where I was worried or concerned for my safety, but that also has to do with the preparation and planning that went into it. Like it was said before, we went over where we're going to be. And once we landed in that location, we had like a orientation day where they show you how to use public transport. If you're going to take the bus or you're going to take the train, this is how you get from where you're staying to the hospital or to the school. So you already knew the routes that you were taking. And then they would also take us to maybe like a main market or a main square. So these are probably all of the places that you're going to be at. I would definitely second the eSIM because I was supposed to have coverage, but something wasn't working. So I would randomly be in places and my phone just wasn't working at all. And I had to end up buying an eSIM. So definitely just be proactive with that, because that was probably my only scary moment. Like, oh, my phone's not working. How do I get back home? But definitely stay in groups. And you're typically never going to be by yourself, as you're always either shadowing with another person, you're in the classes with other people, so it's rare to ever find yourself alone.
Like most people have said, like basic safety rules apply. Don't walk out with your phone in your hand like 2 feet away from your body. Like I had a fanny pack that I would put underneath my jacket, and that's where I would store all my valuables, like my phone, my wallet, my keys to the Airbnb that I was staying at and stuff like that. I felt really safe for the most part in the different locations that I was in. Obviously, I was a little bit more nervous to go and walk around at night alone, so I didn't. Anywhere that I had to go walk around at night, I usually had somebody else from the group with me. And for the most part, I stayed on a pretty major street, so I wasn't ever really too worried. And I had a couple people in Airbnbs nearby me, so it was always like, hey, you want to meet up at the corner to get a hot dog? Yes or no? And like we would go, but we weren't alone, and so I felt pretty safe doing that. And like just basically buddy system. Don't walk around with your valuables out. Basic stuff.
I would say to anybody considering to definitely go for it and try to be a part of this program. I feel like it was such an unforgettable experience, and I feel like it was definitely beneficial, as in learning Spanish, getting medical experience, and just being completely immersed into the surgery room or the hospital, doctor to patient interactions, things like that. I'll never forget.
Yeah, I really can't recommend this program enough. I feel like it surpassed all my expectations on every level, whether socially or shadowing or academic. I feel like there's just so many takeaways, and if do the trip, and if you do the trip, keep an open mind to the different cultures, the different type of people you're going to meet, to the obstacles you're going to overcome and face while you're there. But seek out the challenges. I think that's when you find yourself learning the most, making the most friends, and be yourself, especially in the group setting with the group that you're there. I feel like people that did the best really just put themselves out there and were their authentic selves, and sought out the adventure and everything that they could.
I think that this was one of the best experiences I've had, honestly. And if you're considering doing it, you should 100% go for it. I think that the person that I was when I left this program was not the same person that I was when I entered it. It is very transformative on many levels. So not only do you gain an educational experience, both with learning and practicing your Spanish and medical shadowing, the cultural immersion is amazing. I really felt like I was a part of a community, which I didn't expect to feel, considering this was my first time entering all of these countries. I'd never been in Latin America before. And it's also just an amazing experience personally. As I said, it is very transformative. You kind of step into your own when you're on your own with a group of people you've never met in a brand new country. So it was amazing. 10 out of 10. Definitely, you should go for it.
Yeah, I think definitely if you're thinking about it, do it. If you're scared, do it. Because there's nothing more like necessary than finding something that'll help you come out of your shell, even just the slightest bit. From this program, you'll make friends that'll last you a while. I know I still talk to some of the people from my group. And I think definitely just the experiences that you get from this are wonderful. And the time will pass anyway. Might as well be in Latin America while it passes.
I've always said that one of the main reasons I'm going into medicine is to be that provider that speaks Spanish and helps bridge that gap between non-Spanish speakers and Spanish speakers. So definitely getting the medical terms and just the immersive medical experience is definitely going to help me in the future.
The program, I think we talk about cultural empathy as kind of the overarching theme of the trip, and it's kind of thrown in there as something that we kind of need to seek out, or that's what we need to gain from this experience. And the entire time I was doing the trip, I was thinking, okay, am I implementing it right? Is this cultural empathy, or am I just adopting, some sort of culture to try and make them feel more at home? Like, what's actually what is it we're trying to do? And I think it took me a while to realize after the trip that cultural empathy is doing a trip like this at all. It's making the connection between someone and making sure that their fears that acknowledging that, albeit there might be cultural differences in between us, it's not going to result in a difference in treatment or intention between patient and a healthcare provider, or just anyone. It doesn't have to be in the medical realm. But I think that was my biggest takeaway, is that just trying and making that effort at all is what we really should be seeking out.
I have already included this experience for other things that I've applied for. For example, I did a diversity and cancer research program over the summer. And one of the main things that I talked about in my interview was how impactful this experience was in experiencing other cultures and understanding how important it is to put yourself in someone else's shoes, especially as a person of color. Like, I know what it's like to be in a doctor's office and kind of feel like you're not seen. And so just going to another country and really feeling that personal experience with a patient, I think, is very impactful.
Yeah, I think for sure this experience was something that kind of like it resonated very deeply with me, because as somebody whose parents were immigrants, I have been there in the shoes of like, oh, I don't know what this doctor's saying to me. Can you like help me translate this? Like, if I can be one of the providers, like Sophia mentioned, that can help those who need it because of a language, like those who might be struggling because of a language barrier, that's so much better. If I can decrease the amount of like kids my age or kids who are young trying to help adults understand such difficult concepts such as like medical things that are happening, I think that just gives me peace of mind.